All right. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to day 3 of the CXO 2.0 conference, powered by the unwavering support of our platinum sponsor, the Michael Cook Group. As we continue to explore the forefront of business innovation and leadership excellence, today promises a lineup of engaging sessions designed to broaden your horizons and deepen your professional connections. As we kick off our first session of the day, we're diving into an exciting journey. Today's panel discussion, titled Leadership in Transition, Building a Visionary Roadmap for Organizational Growth and Adaptation, promises to be a groundbreaking exploration. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, Aaron Robbins, co-founder and president of Intrinsic First, and the visionary panelists.
Good. Oh, can everybody hear me?
Yep.
All right. I'm going to have my phone out because I have notes, not because I'm texting people.
People are texting notes. That's right.
Yeah.
Rough route this morning.
Yeah, thanks everybody for coming.
Good morning, everyone. Hey, yo. We know it's the last day, but
Yeah, right.
get along.
We appreciate all 12 of you being here. 14.
A regional fire test.
Well, I was going to make a joke about that too, but we already got that done. So.
Efficient fun.
So, you already mentioned the title, but I'll mention it again. Leadership in Transition, Building a Visionary Roadmap for Organizational Growth and Adaptation. The way we'll structure this panel, we're going to each kind of do intros and have kind of an initial discussion from each of us on our perspectives of the overarching title. Then we have some discussion questions that we're going to go through, kind of focused on communication related to change and vision, then leadership skills. And then if we have time, which I doubt it, but if we have time, we'll get into some cultural aspects of change as well. And then we'll wrap up, and hopefully there'll be questions, and we're going to leave time for questions. So with that, I was going to kick off with a joke because, and it's a shameless plug, but I started a podcast back in October with my business partner and a colleague, Dr. Zagarmi. And we always try to put jokes in the beginning and the end. So I was going to, has anyone actually heard the rumor about the butter?
Nope.
You know what? Never mind. I shouldn't spread it.
But
All right. They're dad jokes. I got
dad jokes.
So
you know how you find out if it's a dad joke or not?
yeah,
If it's a parent.
good.
I got 6 kids. I full rights here.
So we'll start with intros on the other end, and we'll work our way back. Luis, if you want to start.
Perfect. Luis Sanchez. Nice meeting everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm the founder and CEO of EthicLink. We're a business consulting group focused on helping companies with ethics and compliance programs and implementing them within their business strategy. But in my opinion, everyone here is an ethics and compliance officer. I mean, to what I'm hearing for the last 2-3 days, you're all promoting organizational culture. And you're all advising on tools to whether reduce risk or help processes in place. So, nice being here.
Hi, my name is Serena Chang. I'm co-founder of Impello. We are a professional development education company that basically develops holistic professional development programs, both with university partners as well as currently being developed for corporate training. And I also want to mention that kind of the vision and mission of my startup really builds on my PhD research. I was joking with Aaron and his business partner yesterday that we're all learning, right? And we're all still in school. And this whole kind of lifelong learning is really critical, I think, in terms of navigating transition, really putting forth leadership. And I'm in a really emergent field of integral, or what I really call whole person education. So all of my professional development programs not only focus on kind of intellectual and content development, but equally on emotional, psychological, ethical.
You go.
Totally, yes. We're all our own ethics officers, right?
Definitely.
And for many of us, also kind of our spiritual and religious development as well. So wonderful to meet you all.
Hi, my name is Janine Tamara-Holman, and I'm the CEO of J&J Consulting Group. We are an organizational development consulting group, and so what that means is that we work inside of organizations to help them navigate change, to help them. We do a lot of change management work. We've been doing a lot of resilience work recently. I talked about this yesterday. The CEO of Korn Ferry, which is like the second biggest organizational development kind of think tank group out there. Their CEO said that we have undergone more change in the last 4 years than any of us have experienced ever before in our life. And so, I don't know about you, but I'm kind of tired. Like, it's been a lot of change. And so we help organizations manage through that change, develop organizational resilience, develop individual resilience for their people.
Hey, y'all. I'm Dr. Rena Lyons. I am from Dallas, Texas, originally from Chicago. I am the owner of REB X3 Consulting, where we help you reflect, enhance, and blossom using emotional intelligence. And it helps you be a better servant leader, which is why I love this panel of visionaries. So can't wait to discuss and dig more in with you guys.
Good morning, Evan Blumenthal. I am a professional EOS implementer with EOS Worldwide. For those of you who are thinking about the lip balm, it might be in your pocketbook or in your pocket. That's not what I do. EOS stands for the Entrepreneurial Operating System, and what it is a way of harnessing all the human energy in your business so that you can run a better business, frankly, live a better life. And so I work with executive leadership teams, the teacher, coach, and facilitator to help them learn how to gain more clarity around their vision, more traction towards that vision, and build a healthy and cohesive team together. And one of the things that we always say is, as goes the leadership team, so goes the rest of the organization. So my role is to teach the leadership team that is simple and practical tools that really help them get more of the right stuff done every day, week, month, but also help them build that roadmap towards where they're trying to go. And the goal is to have them that, then teach it and dispel it throughout the organization. So rather than trying to create dependence, we're creating independence. So we're teaching them how to teach it so that I can almost work myself out of the job, and that's actually intentional.
Great. And I'm Aaron Robbins. I have a few hats that I wear. I am the co-founder and president of the company Intrinsic First that I founded with my business partner Jimmy back in 2020. And we do defense consulting services to the Navy, San Diego. That's kind of our main work right now. But the reason I'm here is actually a different business line that we're growing now, which is leadership consulting and organizational development. So we are building new and innovative ways, leveraging AI and other scientific-based methodologies to help teach and develop leaders and improve organizational cultures in a way that actually sticks and is sustainable. And I'm also the managing director of a startup company called Mojo Moments, which was founded by a woman named Susan Fowler, who's a best-selling author in motivation, came out of the Blanchard company, Ken Blanchard. And we have a set of motivation products, training, assessments that we have for leaders and individuals to help teach motivation based on the science of motivation and how to apply that to improve people's well-being, to improve performance, reduce burnout. The benefits of the new science of motivation is actually expansive. So, and then I'm also working on a PhD in organizational behavior. I have a master's in psychology as well, but yeah, we have a few. We also have another PhD student on the panel. So. We were bonding over that grueling effort that we're going through. But
I just play one on TV.
yeah. So, so with that, let's kind of get into it. So I'm going to pull this back up so I can remember the first question we had. So the first discussion question is, how can leaders develop and communicate a clear vision during times of transition? Does anyone want to?
I'll start. So,
Perfect.
you know, one of the things when there are transitions happening, and, you know, let's be real, we are in a place of sort of perpetual transition. And one of the things that's really tricky for leaders is if it's not a really small organization where sort of everybody has been in the conversation about what is change going to look like, it's really hard for the leaders, for the CEO, to go back to the beginning and remember to bring people along what the process has been. Because you've been through the whole process and you're now ready to like, okay, so we're going to roll it out and people are going to get excited. But if you don't bring them back, and if they don't have an opportunity to understand, so we looked at this and we decided this wasn't the right way to go. When we looked at that, and that didn't really seem to quite fit with the organization. You know, we explored all these different things. Then your people are going to be left with, well, but wait, did you consider this? Did you consider that? And so remembering to go back to the beginning and bring your people along, I think is one of the key elements to rolling out any sort of program you're looking at things are transitioning.
Can I jump in?
Please. Yeah.
All right. So what I found in organizational change is through that transition process, you were absolutely right. You got to go back to the beginning. You got to look at what worked. But communication is essential. What I find is employees push back because they don't understand. So you have your long-term employees who may or may not have been with you for like 30 years through your journey, and they are in that if it's working, don't break it phase, right? You guys know. Come on, wake up, crowd.
Yep.
Don't break it. If it's not working, don't, you know.
You've been sitting for 30 years, so
let's
it's
not break
definitely,
it.
That's right.
you want to break it.
That's it.
But then when you're doing that, a lot of leaders forget to communicate the whys behind why we have to do this. Technology is changing. We have a new generation of individuals coming in that, you know, we're changing. Social media has changed. So when you have that communication and you're explaining that why to them, then you can really get them to go through that aha moment. So that's when I'm looking at it from the EQ thing. I'm self-aware, I'm managing, but I'm also getting that feedback on that relationship management part that's helping me help my people grow. And they all have a part on it. And so when you do that, then what I find is the transition of change is a lot better. So communication,
You get it.
yeah, you don't get that resistance against the boat. So I find that communication is just great and essential.
We'll build on that and repeat. Repeat. I mean, the organizations have their 5-year plans, they have their mission, their vision, which has to be constant, repeating because of the people that are leaving, the people that are coming in, newcomers, and your KPIs, your annual goals. Just find out a strategic cascading way to communicate the essence. You don't have to communicate the entire thing that the leaders want to build upon, but just the strategic things that each department can implement to contribute to that goal. But repeat have worked.
I think to further add on this, and maybe as a complement to what Janine said, you know, currently the startup I run in Palo, it's myself, my co-founder, and we work with 3, now 4 contractors. So it's a really, really small organization. And, you know, each of our employees, right, is a real kind of lifeblood to our programming, to what we offer, and, you know, ultimately what our learners and kind of end users really get from our professional development products. And, you know, I would say some of the transitions we've really had to navigate over the last couple of years, and it's just one, and I'm sharing probably a bit of what is all understood here, but there's just been massive workforce changes, right? Employee retention is a real issue. You know, people having, workforce longevity now is not more than 2 or 3 years, right, before you jump to your next job. And we have a lot of learners coming to us who are, right, they want to stay in the organization that they're at, they want to continue to grow, or, they do want to look for, right, they're a little bit more kind of tuned into the gig economy, or, want to head towards AI and big data, which are really hot right now. And, I think the transitions we've had to really navigate as an organization is first, programmatically, how do we make sure that the professional development experiences and learning that we provide really support each learner kind of in what they want to accomplish, right, in their professional journey. And I think one way we've really been able to kind of keep this fresh, as we've gone through this more broad industry and workplace transition is, my co-founder and I will hold quarterly meetings, team meetings. We actually are contractors are spread between Chicago, Korea. We have 2 that are local to the Bay Area where we're based. And half of it is what everyone communicated here. Why are we making a shift? Why are we focusing a little bit more on mid-sized corporate training? But we make sure that we really leave ample time because we value the voice and experience that each of our contractors come from. Being an executive coach, being someone who has ran the corporate managerial training program. So we really also make it kind of a co-creative process in terms of what the next couple months, maybe what the next year is going to look like. Because our employees just bring really valuable perspectives that us with the vision cap don't always have. And we found that to be just a really immense tool. And I think for those that are working in larger organizations, you can certainly probably do these in smaller scales where you're not having a 1,000-wide employee powwow. But hiring managers can certainly use this as a tool where, again, there's just some conversation about the vision and the transition.
Absolutely, and when we think about the buy-in and not getting the pushback, the more that we can, it's easier, of course, when you've got an organization with 6 people in it. Yep. It's a lot harder when you've got an organization with 1,800 or 2,000 or 44,000 people in it. And the more that you can find touch points to bring people in along the change and be communicating well with them along the change and getting their input. Because, just because we think it's a great idea and we've vetted it with maybe the people who think exactly like we do, it's one of the things that's so important about the conversation that's happening around diversity. When we have diverse opinions and experiences and education and those experiences, we get a much richer pool of thought. And so when we can actually authentically engage people and get that feedback, and get their real thinking about it, we're going to come out.
I'd like to add on, just building on what has been said so far, but just to give some context, early in my career, I started at Walmart and spent 4 years starting from an hourly position as their management, and worked in operations in stores and spent time in about 11 different stores. And one of the things I learned early on in my career there was change is the only constant, right? It's that you can consistently expect change. And you can either embrace it or you can get run over by it, frankly. So those companies or individuals that choose to embrace it, that are truly growth-oriented, without coming with a preconceived notion of this is what the outcome will be definitively, staying curious, having that mindset is really important. But after a period of time working retail, then went to the supply side and worked in a family business. And so working in a company that had 2.2 million associates, Fortune 1, that's the largest of any private employer outside of any government. Then going to a family business that was multi-generational, where there are different challenges, different types of transitions, not as easy for people to just switch positions on a dime. And spending about 15 years in that, in varying roles there, I got a different perspective, and it was through this EOS process that we had implemented into our family business as a way of running our business that I learned that one of the most important things, and this is now what I teach my clients, is if you have a clear vision in your head and you don't tell anybody about it, they're not going to know what it is, right? You ever hear the phrase, can you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right? How could you see what I'm saying? Right? Fundamentally, it doesn't actually make any sense. Hear what I'm saying. I can't see what you're saying. I see a vivid picture in my mind of what I'm talking about. You can't see it. And so for the leadership of any organization to be able to effectively communicate that vision that's in our head, we have to communicate and tell them what that is. And so one of the things that we do when we're helping to clarify the vision for organizations is not only to get clear on where we're going and how we plan to get there, but answering 8 questions that really, we need to make sure that we have alignment at the very top of the organization on the answers to those 8 questions. What are the core values? What's your core focus? What's your 10-year target? What's your marketing strategy? What's your 3-year picture? What's your 1-year plan? What are your quarterly rocks or quarterly goals? What is your issues list? What's going to get in the way of achieving those things? Now, if we know who we are, we know what we love to do and what we're best at, we know where we're going, we know how we're going to get there, and then we can paint that vivid picture and communicate that on a regular basis. Because if you want them to come along with you for the ride, you kind of got to tell them, right? And so our clients actually have a quarterly state of the company meeting every single quarter where they're telling everybody in the business, here's the plan, here's the vision, this is where we're going. And what that does is it gets it shared by all. That vision is then shared by all. Everybody's able to understand the plan, want to be a part of it, and the truth of the matter is, whether they want to come along for the ride or not, you're well served either way, because they will either self-select out if they're not aligned with your vision, or you can promote them to customer status. Either way, you're fine.
And before we go to the next question, I want to add on important to what everybody has said. When we're listening to what our audience is saying, what our staff is saying, those employee engagement surveys, you know, we ask those questions. So when you brought that up, that was the first thing I went to. We really have to read them, because that data, a lot of companies fail to read the input and the engagement surveys that the employees say, which then makes them less engaged and the morale goes down. But really, when you're out there looking at that data, because that data adds into your core values of what you're saying, and that helps you weed it out. So I absolutely agree with you.
Building on that, though, sometimes, in addition to it being extremely important to read what it's saying, we also have to look at what it's not saying. What are people not saying? We have to think beyond what is in front of us. And I think it's a mindset. See a cup over there? Some might argue that it's half full. Some might say it's half empty. I think it's very refillable, right? It's the mindset of looking beyond what is static. What is status quo? What is static? I can only see what's here now in front of me. Let's look beyond that. What isn't being said? What isn't in front of us? What are we missing? If we're all, with that like-minded approach where we're just talking to people that have the same, line of thinking, it's not just about getting the diversity in the room. Go out of the room. What are we missing here? So I think that's an important aspect as well.
Up in this conversation.
No, I was going to say more stuff, but I think we've covered it pretty well. The only other thing I'll add, I had a boss when I got into my VP of HR position, and I was now an executive. Our company had grown from 70 employees to almost 400. So on this theme of growth and vision, and he said, Aaron, an executive has 3 jobs. You have to communicate, you have to communicate, and you have to communicate. And the way you do that, I believe in transparency. Hope everyone else does. I think that's the way you do it. You have to be open with employees. But one of the exercises that we did that I think is a great exercise that I'll just offer up to everyone is all the executive team, as we were doing a strategic planning before we went into our 2 or 3 day offsite, we all did an exercise where we wrote a story, a couple pages. Some people wrote longer, some people wrote shorter, but it was describe a day in the life in 10 years from now. Right? And it was very simple, but actually it was very difficult to do. But once we did it, it created that vision. So we're talking about vision. It helped kind of make that vision tangible so that we could all talk to each other about it, and then help us build our values and vision and mission and objectives on top of that to then be able to communicate it. So if anyone's ever done that or you think that's interesting, I
Actually, I want to build on that for a second. One of the things that I share with people when we talk about that 3-year picture is obviously this 10-year goal, and it's anywhere from 5 to 30 years. It doesn't matter if it's actually 10 years or not, but that's that one single goal. But that 3-year picture is where we really want to start to paint a picture. And the way I like to describe that to people is, how many of you have done a puzzle ever? Okay, keep your hands up if you've done a puzzle. Put your hands down if you've only done a puzzle after looking at the front of the box. Right? So if you've done a puzzle that you don't know what the picture looks like, it's a lot harder. Right? We're asking our people to do a puzzle, do their job without having any clue what the box looks like. And that's what the vision communicated well, articulated well, is for them. It's the puzzle box where they can, oh, I see what, I might not know exactly which piece is going to go with which when I'm opening it, but when I know what that picture is, then I can see it, I can picture it, and when you can visualize it in your mind's eye, 2 great things happen. Number one, it's a lot more likely to actualize and actually happen. The universe has a funny way of making things happen when you articulate it. Second thing is, it sets you up for that shorter range planning. So in a 3-year picture example, that 1-year plan becomes a lot more easy to set because you're predicting what's my revenue going to be, what's my profit going to be, what measurables are important, and then those bullet points that might be what does it look like. We're communicating that, and that's really important. But there's one more thing that I want to add, and that is showing. Somebody has said before about showing their roles, right? If we show everyone in the company what the accountability chart looks like for everyone in the business, and they see where they fit into the puzzle, so to speak, of the organization as a whole, and they understand how their role is important not only to their specific department but to the entirety of the company, and we give them a measurable that it shows them and gives them that feeling that we're a part of this larger picture. They really get engaged, and that transition becomes so much easier.
And before we move on, I just want to throw one more thing in here, which is that what we're talking about, it sounds pretty easy as we're all sitting up here. Like, just, get your people together and talk about planning. We are hardwired. I got really interested in neurobiology about 15 years ago. We are hardwired to not reveal plans. Men in particular. So for men, this is actually factory installed. For women, we have learned that you don't share the plan. But for men, you never share the plan because then somebody else could come in and thwart your plan. And so, it's the reason that my husband doesn't want to fully reveal to me his plan for our retirement. Because, I might come in and start spending some of the money. I might come in and, let's put in a pool. Right? And so, exactly. And so this is hardwired in us, a resistance to reveal the plan. And so we get to be really conscious about it. It's where emotional intelligence is so important to understand we are going to be reticent to do this and get to do it. And we get to do it together. We get to pull each other into it. And it's
Sorry, it just reminds me of a funny story I heard. A CEO and a CFO were just having a quick conversation, and the CEO was saying, hey, we got to train all of our people. It's really important that we train them. The CFO was like, well, what if we train them and they leave? What if we don't and they stay?
right.
Good. All right, so let's keep going. We'll go to the next. I told you we're not going to get to culture. So the next discussion question is, what skills and competencies are most critical for leaders to develop in order to guide their organizations through transitions? And if it's all right, I kind of want to start with this one.
Please.
So my research is all around leadership skills, and specifically how that impacts employee motivation, work motivation, and employee work passion that we call it. I'm not going to go down that road. But motivation is, I think, a very interesting topic, and in my organization, we believe it's a skill, not being motivated, but shifting your motivation. And what research has shown, self-determination theory, which has actually been around since the 70s and 80s, but it's just now starting to kind of evolve itself into the workplace, and mostly in sports and performance more than the workplace. But motivation is not actually about being motivated more or less, or motivating somebody. It's about the quality of a person's motivation. And what the research shows is that motivation happens from extrinsic, on a continuum from extrinsic, which is a suboptimal or controlled type of motivation, to a more autonomous motivation, or intrinsic or internal motivation. And as leaders, we don't motivate people, we create an environment, and we work with people that enable them to find that optimal motivation, that intrinsic motivation. And the way we do that is through 3 human needs that all humans have, regardless of race, religion, gender, any of that, which is choice, connection, competence. So that skill that a leader can have, or an individual, of understanding how to proactively satisfy their own psychological needs or help others satisfy those needs, that is fundamental. That's going to be the foundation of having well-being, reducing burnout. And when you're optimally motivated and those needs are satisfied, and you can think about that as you go through the rest of the conference, is that when those are satisfied, when you feel connection with people or with a purpose, or both, really, and when you have choice in what you do, you feel that you have you're doing things on your own volition. And when you're growing or learning and feeling that you're competent or capable of doing something, not necessarily an expert, but competent in doing something, you're going to feel that alignment and internal energy, and it actually grows vitality. So you're not using willpower anymore, and it's sustainable over the long term. And that's actually a skill that I think all leaders need to know, really all people need to know, and it's a foundation for growth and being able to adapt to change. So I'll start with that as a leadership skill.
If I can build on that. Remember, we're talking about a roadmap. And to have a roadmap is to first know where you are and know where you're going. And then find what resources you will need to get you there. And obviously, communication, motivation is a really, really high resource. And you need to have those. People. Nothing is written in stone. Change management. It's a constant change. So reinvent yourself as leaders. Don't forget to pull everyone in with you.
Jump in real quick. Question for everybody in the audience. Who knows their leadership traits? Like what kind of leader you are? You guys know that? Do you guys stick with it when you're dealing with each individual that you have to deal with?
No.
Can someone tell me why we don't stick with it? Adaptation. Everybody retains differently. So that's where, when we were talking about EQ, that's where that comes in. You're self-aware. Like, I consider myself a servant leader. I'm boots to the ground. I like to jump in there. Plus, I just like to keep busy. But not everybody responds to that. Some people need an authoritative leader. Somebody needs a transformative need. You know, I think we can go down the whole leadership tree. But everybody is different. So when you're self-aware of who you are, and then you manage that, and then you come across someone who triggers something when you're being proactive, and you're like, okay, now I need to change up the game. It's not working. It works for this group, but it's not going to work for this group. That helps with that roadmap. So you are absolutely right. It's part of that motivational. We had a long talk yesterday about this, but we can go on with our industrial organizational brains here. But knowing who you are and being able to adapt and understanding that even when you think you've mastered it, you think you have the traits because it's worked, it's always going to change. So when we're talking about growth and adaptation, we're talking about change management, that you're absolutely right on that one. We are constantly changing. We are constantly communicating. But knowing that and being aware of that and helping others and knowing everybody's different is what gets you there. So you have to adapt. I.e. why it's been our growth and adaptation. But you have to adapt to each situation. So you guys got me very excited. And Maslow came to mind, by the way.
Well, you know, Maslow is not empirically proven.
I know, and I love to
Prove it.
Patrick Winfield is my thing too. But again, we're talking about that.
I want to actually just build on one thing that you said, and that is the EQ. Emotional intelligence and self-awareness is so critical as we talk about this, but it's not only enough to know what your strengths are, what your leadership style is, what your natural tendencies are. It's really important to know that of your team and those of your peers. And that's where I think many of the assessments that are available today are really helpful. But what I would offer, and again, in my experience, there is no one single assessment that will be the end-all, be-all, because a lot of times, people, I have we suggest Colby, which is a conative assessment, different than a cognitive assessment. So it doesn't measure intelligence or thinking. It measures the conative, how someone takes action. How do you show up in the world if you're free to be your natural self, so that MO? And there's 4 aspects to that: fact finder, follow through, quick start, and implementer. And when I learned that I was a 6293, which means I'm a high, well, medium-ish fact finder, low follow through, high quick start, and lower on the implementer scale. And I'm not going to go into all of what that means right now, but the point is, when I understood that, I realized that the reason why I was sometimes frustrated when talking with other people who had a different Colby than I did was because perhaps they were an extremely high quick start, extremely high fact finder. They asked a lot of questions, and I'm a high quick. I didn't have patience for all their questions. I didn't have patience to give them all the details of every single thing, on and on and on. They needed a dissertation for, like, how do I get to the bathroom? Like, do me a favor, figure it out, right? And so, but when I realized that we learn differently, we process information differently, we take action differently, understanding how other people show up in the world is critically important. But we need the others as well, because you need to understand not only how people take action, but so it's getting a fuller picture.
Yeah, I would love to provide actually a complementary perspective that everything's been offered is, in Impello, in the program that I've created, we really view leadership development certainly around certain skills or strengths or, kind of your characteristics, as you assume or you really advance as a leader. But, with the program I've built, Self-Design Studio, which we're now calling Professional Design Studio, it's really helping people who are becoming or aspiring to be leaders to actually develop, their own mindset or what we call their own kind of manager, kind of brand, their own professional brand. And I quickly want to talk about, with my Professional Design Studio, it's really built around 3 growth phases. It's not reinventing the wheel, but I think it's really pulling together how people kind of holistically view themselves, get feedback, and really kind of shine forward who they want to be. And that first phase is really focused on self-discovery. We really invite our professional learners to do self-reflective exercises, writing, auditory. And we also have them structure their own 360 feedback review, something that is really ingrained in corporate life. And we have students pick a goal. Their goal might be like, I'm going to become a manager. I want to get feedback on my communications and what my values are. And we'll help them structure, their 360 interviews in various parts of their lives. This then moves us into the second stage of integration, where we have our learners really look for who are leaders that they respect, whether it's someone that's well known, really controversial figure, but someone that's always there, right? Good, bad, and otherwise. But for them also look within their lives, Who do they really aspire to? Who are mentors? And for them, it's really kind of building who I want to be as a manager, while also taking that insight that they're learning from their 360. And the final phase is what we call the professional design, or I guess in this case would be the leadership design phase. So we actually have all of our learners put together a professional brand book. Like, what are my values? We might pull from psychometric tests. Am I a fact finder? And how can that both be a strength as well at times, when I have situational awareness, maybe there's too many questions, I need to reel back a little bit. Totally. Yes. We don't need a dissertation to find the bathroom. So, and in this design phase, we really help managers, new leaders, craft their brand. What's the tone they want to use? The communication style. And what is the team and culture and values that they want to build, either as they're maybe kind of taking over an existing team, or maybe building a team from the ground up. And I think what I'd just like to quickly close on is a quick example of a learner who went through our professional design studio. It was a individual contributor in a tech company. He was from Taiwan, so English was his second language. And when he started our class, you know, he was, I love him. He's a little nerdy, you know, very shy to speak. And he was really self-conscious, you know, about his language skills. And as he went through his 360 and, you know, also a lot of self-reflection about his journey coming to the United States, learning English, you know, going through his schooling and getting into this tech job, which he was actually moving from being an individual contributor to being a tech manager in, I think he really realized how full and how much strength he had shown throughout that journey and gotten a lot of feedback from many different facets in his life, family, coworkers, mentors, that people actually viewed him as a really strong visionary. And sure, there were ways that he could improve that communication, as we spoke about. And he really took all this to heart. He built out a really strong leadership manager brand guide for himself. He created his own motto, which is innovation is in the power of teams. And by the end of class, you know, he would sit up straight, his shoulders were back, and he's always a thoughtful speaker, but he spoke with so much more confidence and really what I felt was self-confidence in who he was a leader as he moved into the next phase of his career. So I just wanted to share that perspective as well.
So we're running short on time. I want to make sure if there are questions, that we have time. So I'll open it up. If anyone has any questions, I'd love to address those. If not, we'll do some
Just don't
closing
throw
statements.
curveballs at us. We might not be able to take this earlier, right?
All right.
I just want to,
Did you want to go to the mic? Oh, yeah, that works.
yeah.
Oh.
I know I can.
I think the first one is, I think the first one is self-awareness, right?
I'm serious, it's me.
Right.
Like, if I get out my way, I can do it, but I get in my way. Sometimes I can't do stuff, and then I have to get out my way.
And when we aren't, you know, you're an EQ practitioner, and so we don't always know that we're the problem. And the higher up we get in an organization, the less likely it is that somebody's going to tell us that we're the problem. And so it's really working on that self-awareness that I think is the biggest barrier, or one of the biggest barriers that people can run into.
Luis?
If I can build up on that. So on my experience, 2 words. The first one is personal culture. Everyone has a personal culture that's not always aligned with the company's culture, because your background might be in a delinquent way if you are in high-risk countries. And the way that you grew up is completely different to the values, the vision, the mission of the company. So that's an obstacle. And we had a few months ago, we had a discussion on how personal culture can be a huge obstacle against a company's culture. And the other is conflict of interest. We all have our personal interests. The CEO has his personal interest in the way that he wants to earn his annual bonus. And by achieving that, he needs to comply with all the goals, no matter what. So that is a conflict of interest itself there. And that cascades down to the entire organization. So make sure that you're covering those types of gaps within your companies, so that you're avoiding this and also promoting this to not, whoever your clients are, that they're not falling within those obstacles.
I'd just like to add one small addition to what's been said, and I agree with it. We know that the bottleneck is always at the top, right? That's not new. Look at the bottles. But, as you said before, a lot of times people at the top are not going to be told by the people in the organization that they are perhaps part of the problem. And so what I find is, and personally I've found, that great leaders have three things in common very often. They have a coach. Hopefully they're coachable. If they have a coach, if they have a peer group who's outside of the organization, where they can get a varied perspective from others who are in similar types of situations, and they can bounce ideas, problems, issues off of those other people who have been in the same or similar scenarios. They have a coach, they have a peer group, and they have an operating system for their business, regardless of which operating system it is, but they have a way of running their business. Then, through one or more, or all of those perhaps, they will then realize where they can be the bottleneck and then address whatever it is that they need to address.
All right. I said we would make sure we finish on time, and we started a few minutes late, but I'm still going to finish on time. So just to wrap up, and man, I could talk to you for hours about that stuff. I personally believe people, leaders in particular, in general, need to better understand themselves. That's the first step of being a leader, is what we call prepare, is understanding your disposition. What do you do instinctively by default? How do you behave? And also your values, which adjust that disposition, which is cognitively how you think about what you're doing, the beliefs that you hold. And most people do not have developed values. I never thought I would do this, but I started watching YouTube shorts, which I can't stand when my kids do. Now I'm almost addicted. But I saw this video, people do these social experiments where they'll pretend to do something bad and see if the people around them will stop. But there was one where somebody was pretending to be blind, and they would go up to somebody and just grab their arm. And most people would, what are you doing, a stranger or whatever. But then some people would. And I think those types of things help people realize, well, wait a minute, what are my values and what should I have done in that situation? Because it almost takes practice to live your values and to develop them instead of just being programmed or default. So in any case, we'll all be around later if anybody wants to chat. And I'll leave you again, because we always have to finish with a joke. Does anyone know how a hamburger introduces his wife? Meet Patty.
Oh my goodness.
Thanks, everybody.
I love it.
That was a good one.
Okay.
Yep.